This podcast is powered by Pivotal Moments Media. Check out our mental wellness bundle on sale now.
The bundle includes education on suicide prevention, learning to listen, and My Mission Matters, exclusive content from U.S. Navy SEAL Mark Green, and more. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Life After the Military, a show completely focused on reversing the trend of veteran suicide, homelessness, and problematic transitions by helping veterans transition from military to civilian life and strengthening the mental fitness of our active duty military members, veterans, and their families. Our show is powered by Pivotal Moments Media, an organization on a mission to strengthen mental fitness worldwide for all. Go check them out at pivotalmomentsmedia.com to learn more. My name is Lee Elias, and I'm joined as always by my good friend and co-host Howie Cohen, and we are privileged to have United States Marine Corps Colonel Retired Beau Higgins with us today. Beau served in the United States Marine Corps for 24 plus years as an intelligence officer, and Beau's assignments included, and I am telling you, while I am reading a list that Howie Cohen provided for me today, this is impressive, 10 plus years as a signals intelligence officer, 2 years as an operations officer for Intelligence Training Command in Dam Neck, Virginia, 2 plus years as the commanding officer of the 1st Recon Battalion, 3 years as the director of the Intelligence Plans Division at the United States Special Operations Command at MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, Florida, 5 months as the commanding officer of Task Force Belleau Wood in Helmand Province, Afghanistan, and 2 plus years as the commanding officer of Headquarters Battalion, 2nd Marine Division. We did it. I got through that, guys. You never want to mess those up. Today, Beau is the senior manager of military talent acquisition for Amazon. It's something we're going to dive into today. I know that's going to interest a lot of our listeners. Beau, it's a pleasure to have us with you. Welcome to Life After the Military.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks, Lee, and thanks, Howie, for having me here. Looking forward to talk a little bit about my military career and what I do here at Amazon, helping out veterans every day. Great to be here.
It's great to have you here, and I'm excited to hear about Amazon as well, really. And we always start with the same question here. It's the question on the top of everyone's minds, all of our listeners. But again, you served in the Marine Corps for 24 years. Thank you for volunteering, first off. And can you share with our audience how you prepared, executed, and did your transition out of the military into the private sector? What went well? What didn't go well? What would you do differently if you knew then what you knew now?
No, it's a great question, and I talk about that a lot. You know, it's in the role I'm in now, obviously, I see folks that are transitioning every day, and it makes me think about my transition. You know, to be candid, I had a relatively easy transition out, and I think the reason for that is I was able to maintain while in the Marine Corps a lot of my friends from back growing up, friends from my neighborhood, friends from high school, friends from college. I stayed connected with them during my Marine Corps time. So when it became time to actually transition, what I started to do was just call them up and say, hey, I'm getting ready to get out. I know you're in commercial real estate. What does that mean? You sell buildings, but what do you do all day long? And I'd call a friend that was in a different business, say, hey, what do you do? And just kind of having those conversations. So,
right.
It's networking, but it was fun networking, right? And it was networking in a way that I was actually getting to kind of, in some ways, reconnect with friends of mine that knew I'd been in the military for 24 years, 25 years, but didn't really know exactly what I did exactly. And I had no idea, what they did except for like a business card. But those conversations led to other conversations, right? I would talk to somebody, in the government sector, and they'd say, hey, you need to talk to this guy because, he works, in operations down in Tampa, and you want to go back down there, so just having those conversations. And I think over time, you realize, first of all, what you don't want to do, which is just as important as what you do want to do, right? So again, the key to transition to me, I think to anyone, is just start talking to people. It's that networking piece and having conversations, and just, again, the more you can figure out what you want to do when you get out, the more people like me can help you once you are on that path. If you come to me and say, I'll do anything anywhere, it's hard for me to help. And it starts with you doing that homework up front.
So, Beau, a couple quick things. For those of you listening to this episode, I have to tell you this. Beau has an infectious smile. And I'm not trying to be funny so much right now. I mean, really, you do, all right? That scares me a little bit because the last time a Marine smiled at me, it was at training camp in college, and he was having me, dredge across a football field in the mud. It was a very different smile, though. The second thing I want to tap on is, this is actually amazing to me, Howie. The last 3 guests we've had have all kind of insinuated this concept, Beau, of I didn't give myself fully to the military, right? In the sense of my entire identity was not with the military. It's amazing because I don't think anybody had said that up to that point. And the last 3 guests we've had have all said, well, no, I have my friends from before the military, or I have my music. We had a guest on from before the military. And all 3 of you, if I'm not mistaken, Howie, have had pretty comfortable, keeping everything relative, transition. So, Howie and I have pinged that as one of now the major keys. And it's got to be worded right, because if you're in the military, you have to give yourself, obviously, like that. But we're talking more about personal identity and who you are. And then obviously the communication aspect of networking, that is a go-to gold standard of this show, to make sure that you are connecting and communicating and having conversations, cups of coffee. I love the question. So what is commercial real estate? Right? I love that, because everybody goes, I know what that is. Do you really? Do you really know what that is? Because if you knew, you wouldn't be asking. Let's be honest about it. But I wanted to bring up those points because I really am almost astonished that 3 guests in a row have brought that up. Go ahead, Howie.
Yeah. So it's actually a great catch, Lee. It really is. I did not catch that, so thanks for bringing that out.
That's why I'm here, Howie.
Yeah. There's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons you're here, Lee.
That's true.
There's a lot of reasons you're here, man. And I'm really glad to see you got the right hat on today.
I'm wearing my Charlie Mike hat for those of you listening. It was one time I forgot the hat, and I'm never going to let it down.
I don't think you forgot. I think you're just testing me, man. See if I was paying attention.
There's way better ways of testing than forgetting a hat now.
Well, but hey, listen, I do want to reinforce or just kind of hit again, double tap a couple things that Beau said that I think are extremely important points, learning points for our transitioning veterans. Is number one, you got to own the process. Absolutely. Now, that doesn't mean you're doing everything yourself, but it means you're taking full responsibility and accountability for the process. Right. That's number one. And what I mean by that is, there's a tendency and I'm seeing that because I've been in this space now for almost 19 months now. And this is not people I've talked to, but I just see things on LinkedIn. There is a tendency for some to think, well, I'll just reach out to a VSO and they'll find me the job. They'll write my resume. They'll help, they are there to help you, but they're not there to do the work for you. Right. So what Beau said here is extremely important. Own the process, take full accountability for it. And if you do that, there are tons of people and organizations that will literally bend over backwards to help you if you're willing to do the work. Right. So that's number one. Number two is ask for help. Right. There's a lot of people who let their ego get in the way, right? They think, hey, I've been a successful officer, non-commissioned officer. I served here, I served there. I've been successful. This is different than probably anything you've ever experienced before in your life. And so it is okay. In fact, I think it's almost a requirement to ask for help.
Right.
And that doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're being smart enough to know, I don't know everything I need to know. There are other people out there who, like Beau said, friends who've gone through this process before, whether in the military or outside the military. Let me kind of leverage their experience. And that is a very, very smart thing to do. Right. And I forgot what the third thing is. I'm talking too much.
If I could pile in on that, I think, Lee, you did pull a nice thread across that, and I do make that analogy. That in the military, you talk to people that what I call have become institutionalized. And it's like the Shawshank Redemption, right? Where everything in their life revolves around what's inside the walls of that base, and they lose sight of the outside world. So for transition, for some people can be scarier than for others, because your whole life is wrapped around your rank or your place or your, what just happens day to day on the military base. And if you don't connect those connecting files back to the real world, transition does become even harder for a lot of people. That happens to a lot of folks, especially if you're, as you know, many people that are joining the military are leaving behind maybe a bad situation or something they did are kind of getting away from. So that's an intentional choice, but it makes the reintegration into, kind of society even harder if you do lose all those connecting files back to that. And Howie, to your point of, the process of asking for help, I make that same point. People ask me this question of, why do veterans fail in their transition into the military? And I say, what I see at Amazon is, veterans in particular, because they're used to being so independent. Like you can pick a phone call up and you can, you need a medical appointment, you need a Humvee, you need a weapon, a guy. Everywhere you go on the base, you got a guy, right? All of a sudden you get to Amazon, they're speaking a whole new language. They're talking in something you've never heard of. And you as the military guy, if you indicated weakness in the military, that was a bad thing. Being dependent on someone was not good for your career. So all of a sudden you're in this civilian job and you don't know what people are saying, but you're kind of programmed not to ask for help, because if you ask for help, that means you're dependent. Reality is you have to ask for help. You have to take a knee, drink water, raise your hand and say, hey, I don't know what y'all are saying. People will bend over backwards to help you if you do ask for help, but they're not going to come to you and say, Beau, looks like you're having a bad day today. Let's go have a cup of coffee. That's not how the corporate world works. You have to ask for help. People will help you if you ask, but if you try to do it yourself, and it's like, I think you get this, I call it the deployment mindset, right? And I put my head down and I'm going to grind through it, and the deployment will be over in 6 months and I'll go back home. Well, the deployment never ends at Amazon, right? Yeah. You're always there. So you can't get through it. And it builds and builds and builds to a point where you have to leave. So that point of being, you need to be, dependent, being dependent is okay, I think, is what you have to kind of come around to in the civilian world as we make that transition.
A couple of things, Beau, on what you said. I always like to mention this too, kind of as the civilian in the room, is that every transition is different, but I always want people to transition. You're not alone, and it's not even limited to the military. There's transition, like I said, for professional and collegiate athletes. There's transition out of college. There's transition out of a marriage at times. So transition in its essence is never easy. Now, again, every scenario is different. I'm not trying to say the transition out of sports and out of the military are the exact same thing, but the elements that make it problematic are loss of identity, loss of community, loss of purpose, and then having to learn something brand new. Now, with that said, I have this line. I've actually never told you this, Howie. This is something that was taught to me in college.
There's actually something you never told me.
There's a lot of things I haven't told you, Howie.
And I don't want to know.
Yeah, exactly. That was my next line. No, but you know what? When I was in college, I had a great mentor. Her name was Patty, and she ran our broadcasting department. And I remember one time I came to her and asked her something, and she looked me in the eye and she said, "Have you done everything you could to find that answer on your own before you came to me?" And I said to her, "Well, no." And she goes, "You can always come to me, always, but make sure you've done everything you can before you come to me." And that has always been my gauge on something. All right. Now, when it comes to business and Amazon, I'm a business owner. I subscribe to that still, but I always tell my employees, absolutely come to me if you ever need help. Because here's the deal in the civilian world for everybody transitioning. The bottom line is usually the mission. All right. If the company's not making money, company doesn't exist. Some leaders do really well with that and explaining that and making a team environment. Others don't. Others don't care. They just want that bottom line to be where it needs to be in the black. But this is something I like to say. If you need help and you don't ask for it at all, you are damning yourself. You are damning the company. It is not worth it. I always say that if someone knows what they're doing and you can learn from them, that's strength. That is being part of the team, right? And also, like, as a manager, as a leader, I don't want an employee to take 10 months or 10 hours to learn something that person can learn in 10 minutes by asking the right person. All right. If you've done your research, like I said, and the research may be, hey, who knows the answer to this question? Who knows how to operate this machine? Who knows how to do that? But again, Howie mentioned it. It's the ego. You have to drop it. You have to really gauge the situation. And you have to move forward together. But I've always used that as my gauge of especially today with Google and things like that. It's like, don't go running to 12 different people to solve your problem, right? Do everything you can. And if you really can't find an answer, find a professional and move forward. That's kind of how I approach those situations. And again, coming out of the military, and I saw this with my wife, it's a little bit different. It's like, no, I have to do it.
It's much different.
Yeah,
and
I have to do it, right?
This is a great point, Lee, but what I want to really emphasize right now is do not follow that advice with transition from the military.
Right.
And I'm not saying you can't do this on your own. I'm not saying that, but it is going to be really, tough. It's going to be really stressful. There's just there are so many resources out there now. It's just that will help you and make this so much less stressful and so much more successful. It's just finding the right ones, because there are 46,000 veteran service organizations, and not all of them operate the right way. Some of them are extremely predatory, right? So, but I will tell you, look, again, I've lived in this space. Well, I've gone through it myself, and I've lived in this space for 19 months. And if you're listening right now, although Lee's advice, I think, applies in so many situations, I do not think that advice applies in the military transition. I think you will create a lot more unnecessary stress for yourself and your family if you try to do this yourself. So anyway, I just want to, I think that's an important point for me to make. But, Beau, talking about, you reminded me, and Lee's heard this before, and I won't tell the whole story, but, like you, I had a fairly successful transition. It was not that painful for me because I transitioned back in 2007, but I'd spoken to enough people that I knew that kind of mentored me through the process, and I just basically executed based on their advice and guidance, right? My problem came when I actually got to the company, right? Because I went into government contracting, and I went into a small business, a private business, and I knew nothing about how to run a business or how a business runs. And I knew nothing about government contracting. So my problem was, once I got there, and like you and like most people in the military, we're used to going someplace very quickly in uniform and adding value very quickly. I was adding absolutely no value for the better part of 10 months. And the stress that I put on myself was greater than anything I'd felt in uniform. And I had commanded multiple times at every level through brigade in combat. And I had more sleepless nights. I had more stress in that 8 months going into this government contracting position than I ever did in my time in the military. So, you're, the great point that you're bringing up, and I'm a perfect example of what you just described. So listen, I would love to shift here if we could. After you retired, you took a position as the director of operations with Custom Cable in 2014. I would love for you to share with the audience why you chose to work with them, what you did, and what you, more importantly, and maybe most importantly, what you learned from holding that position. Because now this is your first foray into like the corporate or private sector.
Yeah, 100%. I think it ties back to a little bit of what I alluded to before, as far as you're making those phone calls and talking to your network, figuring out what you want to do and what you don't want to do, right? So in that process, which is 6 months long or so, I realized locationally I wanted to be in Tampa. That was important. Had been moving for quite some time. We had done a tour here at SOCOM in Tampa, and that became the place that helps narrow your search, right? So that's one thing that was important, and that's a way you can do it. And to me, that was, for my family, Tampa was important. I also realized what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to go be a GS contractor. I wanted to get into what I called operations or business in some way, shape, or form. And that really kind of framed the jobs that I interviewed for in the Tampa area. The company I ended up working for, Custom Cable, manufactured and installed fiber optic cable. When I got there, it was about a 200-person company, and it was actually not doing that great at that time. And I came on basically to be the operations officer. So again, a small company. But what I wanted to get, I went into it knowing that I knew I had some holes in my, my resume, if you will, as far as, what does life in business really mean? And you quickly understand, Howie, to your point, like I never had to understand or work with a bottom line. And Lee, you mentioned this as well. Like, the bottom line matters. Like, if you don't sell cable, people lose their jobs. In the military, the paycheck came every 2 weeks, no matter what you did, right? It was easy. I mean, you kind of had budget, but it just kind of came magically, and it was there, and your paycheck came, and that was the beauty of the military, was you had that consistency. When you were on the hook to drive, to profit and to drive growth and revenue, man, it was like the burden on your shoulders is increased, right? So, but I really enjoy that. I had the opportunity to learn a lot in that I was able to get involved in not only operations, but in our marketing, in the actual P&L and the balance sheet, in the HR side, a little bit everything. And that was really what I wanted to get out of it. And I did that for a couple of years, and the company grew. We ended up getting bought out by a company called Amphenol. And again, for me, I realized that I was kind of the number two at the company, and the number one guy wasn't going anywhere. So I had done kind of everything I wanted to do, but it really was a learning experience. That ramp for the first 6 months, just to understand that the business world is so different than the government world, was probably the most important lesson that I took from that. And it set me up for success. I would say this, I wouldn't be at Amazon if it wasn't for being in that job first. It really did prep me for that. It's kind of the interim baby step to get to like the big leagues of the civilian world, kind of taking that baby
AAA
step.
affiliate.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly right. Yep.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So let me ask you this, Beau, and I never actually asked myself this. Like from a business point of view, what is there anything you think you could have done differently, or looking back on it, you wish you had done to maybe better prepare yourself to go into the business world?
Yeah, and I got my MBA years ago, so I kind of thought I knew some stuff about the business world. But
yeah,
I think, to be honest, it's like like managing a P&L. Managing a budget, and really have to understand the numbers behind what you're trying to do, and talking about KPIs and just things that you have to kind of do it to understand it. I mean, I probably could have done a little more on that piece of it, but not a lot. I mean, I think it's one of those things where it's almost you need kind of OJT to learn a lot of those things. So I wish I would have been able to run a spreadsheet or a budget sheet better and understand some of those factors. It took me a while to kind of take the data and like, look, what does this mean? I didn't know what it meant when I would look at it. I really needed someone to help me say, what are the important metrics that you're looking at to understand how the business is doing? I couldn't look at that. I was an intel analyst in the Marine Corps, and I couldn't figure that piece out necessarily. So it just took practice, I think, more than anything. I mean, once it clicked, it made sense, but you just have to, like anything, it's like riding a bike. It just takes a while to get comfortable with it and learn, because it is like a new language. You haven't spoken that way in the past.
Maybe the lesson learned here is that, and I think I was just way too hard on myself, is give yourself a little bit of space and give yourself a little bit of time and grace to grow into it. And I think maybe that's the mistake I made, is I just was so demanding of myself that I created and here's the funny thing about it, right? I'm feeling really bad about it, and I'm the only one who was feeling bad about it, because when I brought it to my company leadership, he said, "Hey, both of them." I worked for the two co-owners of the company, right? And both of them said, "Hey, look, man, this is hard. This takes time," and they were willing to give me the time and the space to learn it. I wasn't, and so maybe that's the lesson learned to share is, understand that unless you go into doing, back into the government as a GS employee, right back to the same job you left, you're going to be learning something different and new, and give yourself the time to adjust and learn, and don't be too hard on yourself. Because I created a ton of unnecessary stress.
Howie, I'll tell you, the phrase that I use a lot is permission to be patient.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, just to your credit, our entire society from literally birth does not support that. Like, we're kind of taught, like, if you think about this, everyone, we're taught to move quickly. I'm going to go on a minor spiel here, but think about this, right? It takes 9 months to give birth. It takes at least 9 months for a woman to reacclimate after that. We give them 12 weeks now in the military, right? It's not enough time. It was 6 weeks when we were in. And then you think about growing up, get on the bus, get out of the house, get up to school, get over going, here we go. Everything is constantly moving. Military, again, I didn't serve, but I imagine there's a little bit of that goes on in active duty service. And then you get out and it's, the same kind of messaging. So I just think for everybody listening, you have to try your hardest. And it's hard because, again, this is ingrained in all of us to kind of break that belief system of, just like you said, Howie, of like, I got to get this now. And it's like, no, let's take a look at it. And Beau, you brought up the great point of, I remember the first time, the first time my accountant sent over our budgeting and our P&L and our balance sheet for my business. And I was like, what the hell is this? I just, there's 150 numbers on here,
Right.
and to your point, I asked, right, hey, could you help me read this? Right. And she said, hey, look, these are the numbers that are important, right? This is what this means. And still, even with that, it took me probably a year to really understand what I was looking at in cash flow versus revenue but permission to be patient. Right. Howie, you said this too. It just reminds me. I remember one time, good friend of mine, Bryce Salvador, who played in the NHL, we were working on a project together, and I was putting so much pressure on myself to hit this due date that we had set. And I remember he called me and he says, Lee, you got to relax. I go, why, man? We got to have it done by this date. He goes, we made that date up. No one else knows about this date. He goes, it's okay. And that's where this kind of sparked in me for the first time of like, he's right. What am I doing? Right. Yeah. Like no one's going to know if we don't hit that date. So Howie, to your credit, permission to be patient was something that, I think everyone, especially with military transition, that's part of it. That's part of it.
No, that's great. In fact, I love that term. That's going to go in our book, Lee.
I'll make it happen. We'll make it happen. Yeah.
So Beau, now and I think we're really looking forward to this as well, is now you in 2016, you took your current position as a senior manager of military talent acquisition for Amazon. And so what I'd love for you to share with the audience now is, one, how did you find the position? And describe, I would love to learn more, or for our audience to learn more about, the plan for Amazon to bring on over 100,000 veterans here in the next 18 to 24 months. And then the other thing is, we had this conversation when I first met you, and I really, really want you to go into this. I loved how you described for me how Amazon has a program in place that helps transition veterans into their workforce, into their culture. And I'd love for you to describe how the program they have to take non-military leaders, how they're helping to train them to be able to lead and manage veterans. So, because one of the goals of this podcast for me is to spotlight companies, organizations, corporations that are actively recruiting, hiring and integrating veterans into their workforce. And what you described to me when I first met you, it's really important that this comes out. So I'd love for you to share that kind of information with us.
Yeah, no, for sure. Happy to talk about all of that. As far as my transition from custom cable to Amazon, it started with, business, right? We actually did the installs for the two big Amazon warehouses in Tampa. So in the Amazon fulfillment centers, everything runs on fiber, all the robots. So my company did the installs for two warehouses in the Tampa area. My boss like, hey, figure out how to sell some more cable to Amazon. I'm like, oh, all right. So I look at LinkedIn, find Marine buddies of mine, like, hey, how do I sell cable to Amazon? They're like, I have no idea how you sell cable to Amazon. However, what I do know is
look on Amazon.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Seriously, that's probably a better answer. That timing. This is back in 2016. Coincided with Jeff Bezos went to the White House in the May of 2016. I made an initial pledge to hire 25,000 veterans and military spouses. So Bezos makes his pledge in May. At the time, Amazon really did not have a dedicated team focused on veteran hiring. So scramble mode, it's like, okay, the boss says we got to do it. We got to do it now. I got brought on to help deliver that. So my conversations about selling cable led to, I don't know about cable. How would you be interested in coming over and, leading our program to hire veterans? We know your personality. We think you'd be great at it. We can teach you what you don't know. I'm like, yeah, it sounds great. So that's how that whole, process started. And it really, that's also a pivotal moment for kind of the launching of our military team. Again, it showed buy-in from the top, right? And I think that's an important point. Yeah. For any company. I get that question asked me a lot, like, hey, we want to start a veteran hiring program at company X. What do we do? Like, hey, the first thing you need is buy-in from the top, because it's just you and a couple guys wanting to do it, and you don't have any resources, and there's really nobody pushing it. You're never going to get there. So you really need to have that, and we did. So that really opened the door for that 25,000 hiring pledge over a 5-year period, which we crushed, and then led to the new pledge, Howie, as you noted, of 100,000 over a 3-year period, which we launched in July 1st of last year. So by July 1st, so in a couple of weeks, I think we're over halfway to that goal.
Wow.
in 1 year, of a 3-year pledge, right? So again, the scale of what we're doing and the investment of what we're making is really huge, because we're seeing the value of what veterans bring to the table. It's easy to sell when you have success, right? That's the beauty of the veterans, what they do. And I think to answer your other question about what we're doing on the kind of bigger picture and hopefully best practices case, I'll quickly describe our team and the way we're set up. So I lead our veteran hiring program, so everything before day one at Amazon. We also have another team, we call it our workforce development team, that is focused on everything from day one and beyond, right? So again, if you're just hiring veterans and they're coming here and they're not sticking around, well, that's not really, that's hurting the bottom line, right? That's costing us money. So what can we do to invest in our veterans from day one forward to make sure we're keeping them? And so this, includes mentoring programs, having a veteran mentor available for them, or non-veteran mentor if that's what they want. Having upskilling programs, right? If they're missing, if they need to close, Howie, kind of to your point of a specific gap, are they missing something? Is it Excel training? Is it SQL database? Can we upskill them in a way, to keep them around, or kind of be their monitor detailer and help them, kind of track their career and invest in them? That's important, right? The talent pool is not limitless, especially when you look at Amazon. We've grown from 300,000 to 1.6 million employees, since I've been there in 6 years. So when you're 1.6 million employees, you can't afford to let people just come in and go out the door. You have to invest, and really invest in that retention piece of things. So that retention piece is not only on the employees themselves, the veterans training, but again, it's also, like you alluded to, Howie, it's to the managers, those non-veteran managers that are out there. So we've worked with Psych Armor, and we have training that we have available for non-veteran managers that say, hey, these are tips and techniques that will help you lead a veteran. Things need to be understand how they think, how they act, what they do. These are things that are going to help you as a manager, as a leader, be more effective in working with the veterans that are on your team. Again, all part of that process to keep them long-term. Because what we've seen, you can look at the data, and Amazon is, if nothing else, we're all about the data. The data shows that our veterans have a higher attrition rate in the first year and a half or so, higher than their non-veteran counterparts. If they make it to that year and a half or 2-year mark, they promote faster than non-veterans. So clearly the data shows we need to invest in that first year and a half, because we can get them over that hump, get them to the place where they're asking questions and feeling it's okay to be, dependent. We can get them through that. That their ramp is great, right? We just got to get them to that hard period. So again, investing in that is essential when we're really doing that. And again, it's not something we did at all 5 years ago, and that's something when I talk to other companies, that's a big piece of what, we want to be able to share best practices of, not only of hiring best practices, but of retention best practices. And then we have a third pillar on our team that's focused on community engagement. And again, tied back to what your podcast is all about, that community engagement is primarily focused on veteran mental health, veteran hunger, and veteran homelessness. So we want to be invested in that as a leader in that space, as thought leaders of how we can move the needle on that, and also find opportunities for our veterans to give back to the community, right? Because you miss that camaraderie, right? When you leave the military, you miss that. And how can we use our veteran resource groups to get those veterans engaged with other veterans and to find that way to give back to the community in some way, shape, or form? Because again, loading a truck every day may not be giving you that self-satisfaction. But if I can find a way for you to go outside the doors and be part of a food drive or some type of veteran event, that's going to help that connectivity in kind of an indirect way and help retention. So that's kind of the things we focus on, and it's been having a lot of success for us. It's a lot there, but yeah.
I took a lot of notes. And things I want to say. One is just going back to the beginning. I love that you mentioned that Bezos kind of made that pledge and that it came from the top. I think that's something that's undersold a lot. We're kind of living in a time period, unfortunately, where people who accomplish and do amazing things are brought down a notch by society. I'll say now I'm a Bezos fan. I'm a Musk fan. I'm a fan of these titans of industry. I don't think they're perfect people in any way. I don't idolize them, but I look up to them. And to hear that, in addition to going to the outer atmosphere and space, he makes a pledge at the White House level of, hey, we want to help veterans. I think that says something, not just about the person, but the company. And you're right, it has to be from the top. Next thing was, I wrote this down, and I say this in athletics all the time. You got to coach the person, not just the player. It's a mistake almost every employer makes of, okay, you're cattle, you're here to work. If you invest the time or find someone to invest the time into your people, you will get better production. It is well known. Statistics support that. This is everything from veterans to athletes to college graduates. Know the people that work for you, right? And understand them on a level if they're willing to do that. I think that's insanely important. Here's one I wrote down. You said Amazon has 1.6 million employees. I don't want to gloss over that, right? I want you to, everyone listen to this. I want you to think about how many people you work with, and then compare that to 1.6 million. That brings up that stat of, like, if Amazon was a small country, right, it would be bigger than these countries, right? So obviously it's not managed one person over 1.6 million, but the level of organization that needs to be there for that size, I mean, that's actually almost unfathomable to me, of that many employees. 1.6 million people work for Amazon, right? That's amazing to me. And also, I'm gonna canvass you hard after the show to see that cheat sheet for managers about what they can do to help transitioning members of the military. Look, I'm gonna applaud you at Amazon for all of that, because Howie and I've talked about this. Not enough companies do this. Most of them do nothing. They just go, I hired a veteran, or if they're even thinking about that. So the fact that there's a process in place, and I love this too, because this is very Amazon-ish of, oh no, when we do this, they actually stay longer. We save money. Again, coming back to the bottom line, people, again, if you've never worked in corporate America, that's what it always comes back to, right? But it's not always based on just greedy people getting money, right? This is a process that is improving lives and in turn improving the bottom line. That's the best of what we have to offer, in my opinion, right? As a country, as a business kind of mentality. I'm always looking for things like that. So it's very comforting to hear that Amazon is actually leading in that regard. It's something you do not hear about enough, to be honest with you, right? When Amazon or any other company does something, takes a step up like that. And again, we need lots of hope. That gives me hope, man. It inspires me. So I just wanted to say thank you for that work.
Yes, and all really good points, Lee. I want to draw out on something, because as you were describing this, Beau, of the investment that Amazon's making with veterans and getting through that 12 to 18 month point, and Lee knows this. I'm very invested in the Army ETS sponsorship program. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but based on data collected by the Department of Veteran Affairs, a group led by Dr. Joe Gerasi, he's a retired lieutenant colonel. He's got a PhD in clinical psychology. He's leading a team of clinical psychologists for this task force that's studying suicide prevention. But what they've learned is that the most challenging point for a veteran getting out of the military is that first 12-month period. They've actually labeled it the deadly gap. And if you can, so the statistic that's coming out of their data and research is that a veteran is more likely, or two to three times more likely, to take his or her life in that first 12 months when they get out of the military. And so the whole concept is, how can we build a program that will help veterans navigate successfully that deadly gap, that 12-month period? And so it sounds very similar to me that you guys have come to a very similar conclusion from a business point of view, that it is costly to the organization, to Amazon, to lose employees in that 12 to 18 month period. So we're going to invest in helping to train them, to integrate them, to take care of them, to take care of their families, to give them a sense of purpose. If they're not getting it on their job, then we're going to help them find it in the community, which is, oh, by the way, if you, and Lee mentioned this earlier, if you skin back all the layers of the onion And it comes down to essentially two things. And that's when a veteran is having a severe problem, when he or she's in a downward spiral, it's they lose when they're in uniform, they're part of a community, they're part of a tribe. And when they're in uniform, they have a sense of purpose. And if their sole identity, and we talked about this earlier in this episode, if their sole identity is them in uniform, when they take that uniform off, they're struggling and they start on a downward spiral. And so if we can help them replace that lost sense of community, if we can help them replace that lost sense of purpose, we go a long way of helping them navigate that deadly gap. And it's exactly what you guys are doing. And it is so consistent with the basic principles that the Army ETS sponsorship program is built on. So I find that absolutely fascinating. And I realize there's a business driver for this. I get that, but that's also tells me there's caring leadership. And that's what really, really motivates me about what you just inspires me, like Lee said, about what you just described. I think that's absolutely fascinating, man.
It also shows, and Beau, I'd love your thoughts on this too, you know, and Howie, I'm not jumping on you, you know, you said, you know, you mentioned the bottom line there. You know, as I've matured as a business owner, my attitude with the business side of it is I just think our perception on that is wrong. Right. In the sense of like, look, there are businesses out there that are incredibly greedy and treat their employees horribly. All right. And I do not stand with that. But industry and business creates opportunities. And again, you're totally describing that, Howie. Right. And here's a company that is creating opportunities with the person in mind. That would not have happened if the free market didn't exist. Again, I'm not trying to dive into that conversation, but I'm just trying to almost turn the polarity of that a little bit. Like if a company does it right, everyone wins, right? The company wins, the people win, the business wins, the consumer wins, right? I look for things like that. So, Beau, just to kind of throw that in, you know, can you tell me if there's personal, obviously there is, but personal pride that comes from that, and that when you look at this from almost a societal basis, you know, it's almost selfless the way you're doing this. We don't hear about this in public, that Amazon's doing this, right? Like, what is your approach to that? How do you mentally break that down?
Yeah, no, I think there is, you know, I'll say this. I feel almost a sense of responsibility beyond Amazon in what I do. And this may sound a little weird, but I know that we are doing things at a scale and a speed that no one else is in the country right now, right? And if we get it right, other companies will follow us, right? So it's not only impacting Amazon, I can have a disproportionate impact on the veteran community writ large if we get it right, you know, whether that's in hiring, whether that's in retention, whether that's in community engagement, veteran mental health. You know, if people see Amazon investing, they don't want to be left behind, right? Oh, Amazon's doing it, we better go too. So I don't care why they do it,
right? But
if I can pull them there because it's something that we're doing, and we don't get everything right. I mean, to be fair, you know, we're spinning 10 plates at a time. That's the Amazon way, right? It's beta test everything, try it all, and if something hits, you don't double down on it, you quadruple down on it, right? You go all in, right? But plates are crashing every day. Like, all right, that didn't work. But what did you learn from that? We that one didn't work, but we learned something and we can reapply it somewhere else. So you can't be afraid to try. I think that's part of it. And that's the beauty. I think the thing that I've really enjoyed at Amazon is that they give you the resources you need to try new things. And when they do hit, you go all in. But again, if we get it right, I think that's also the beauty of the veteran space is, you know, I'm happy to share with a Google or a Walmart or a Lowe's or a thing that our competitors, you know, in veteran hiring and retention and mental health and home, like if we get it right, I will give them every key to the kingdom, right? Because it's not about me or Amazon. This is about veterans, you know, and veteran families and military spouses, you know. So that's part of the give back and also the pressure. Because again, you know that everybody's watching you, and if you get it wrong, it could go south too, right? So you really have to be, I think, but you know there is I think an added degree of, I mean, pressure may be the wrong word, but you know, just responsibility that we know that if we do get it right at the scale we're doing it, that others will and can follow, and we are happy to share that with them. So again, I think it gives me a great sense of pride to be able to be in a place where we can push the conversation, right? We can push the conversation forward on some of these issues that are impacting our veterans and military families.
You know, Beau, I'll tell you, it's inspiring to me as a business owner. right? And a leader in that space, because again, we don't hear that side of business enough. And I love the selflessness of it and the mission of it. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to pull this out of what you said right at the beginning. You, like we said at the beginning of the show, you never fully gave yourself identity wise to the military. You're not doing that with Amazon either. I think that's part of the key to your success of I am not, I'm Amazon. Your identity is not only Amazon. It just goes to show you how important that ideology is in whatever you're doing, right? You know, the proverbial all your eggs in one basket, right? You don't want to do that. The other thing I want to say about risk management, because you brought this up with all the things that Amazon tries, I always say a lot of business is throwing spaghetti at the wall. But if you're doing it right, you know exactly the size of the wall that you need to hit with the spaghetti, and you know exactly what type of spaghetti and meatballs you've made and the trajectory you're throwing it. That's how you throw spaghetti at the wall. You don't just randomly do it. But yeah, listen, so many companies do. They try and fail and try and fail and try and fail. And it really is for everyone's benefit long term. And most people don't remember the failures unless they're really epic in nature. A few of those come to mind, but more good comes out of it.
But you know, that speaks to the, I just have to add this, Lee.
Please, yeah.
And what's so phenomenal about that, especially an organization that large, that successful, but again, that's why I got that large and that successful. I guess it makes perfect sense. Is it's a learning, even as big as it continues to be a learning organization, right?
Absolutely.
There are not many leaders and there are not many organizations that will create a culture that inspires people to take measured risk and rewards them for taking a chance and allows them the opportunity to learn from mistakes, right? Many organizations, to include sometimes the military, is you make a mistake, that could be the end of a career, that could be the end of an opportunity for promotion, that could be the end of a job, right? Because there's a lot of people are not willing to accept that we can make honest mistakes and we can learn and grow from them. There's just a feel of fear of failure,
Right.
So God, kudos to the Amazon leadership for creating and not only just at the top, but the ability for an organization that large to be able to push that all the way down through their ranks. I mean, that is amazing to me that they're accomplishing that.
And I joke about it all the time. I felt like in the military, we'd have these, we want outside the box thinkers. Lieutenant, come up with an outside the box idea, right? And you'd think outside the box, they would jam you back in that box as fast as you could. They didn't really want it. They kind of talk about it. Yeah. They have no way to bring it into the system. Yeah. It's one of those things where it's good in theory, but in reality, it's like, nope, charge at the middle. It worked before, we'll do it again. That's risk averse. And again, I really, it's funny. I got to Amazon, and when the first few months I was here, I'd be in meetings, and again, I got out as a colonel, so I was kind of used to being in decision-making rooms, and we're going through these discussions, and I'm like firing out ideas, like, "Oh yeah, have you tried this?" And like, "That's a great idea," and have you thought about doing it this way? And oh, that's a great idea. I mean, and they're like, "You should try that." I'm like, "Wait, I don't try that. I just put the ideas out there. I'm the colonel." Then you realize, crap, I'm in charge now. Right. I gotta actually, if I put the idea out there, I gotta take it, and they're gonna give me the resource to try it, which is awesome, but also took me a minute to like, wow, they're good with that idea. They're going to give me some resource, some people, some budget, so cool, man, and try it, but it was a culture shift to be able to not only, throw the idea out there, but actually to try it out. And that's really what I value being here. That's why, again, when I talk to people that are looking to transition, that to me is the really the best, one, if not the best, I think one of the best things about Amazon is that, a willingness to fail fast, to learn from our mistakes and try new things constantly, because it's all about speed. It's all about scale. And you have to have that mindset if you're going to be successful.
Yeah. I want to reiterate, this was all built from a guy that was told he's crazy for selling books on the internet.
Yeah.
That's how this started.
Out of his garage.
Out of his garage with a spray painted sign. Again, I'm not. We won't.
I'm honestly not doing enough shit out of my garage, man. I need to get into my garage. I mean,
you got a nice garage too, Howie.
I mean, we got Microsoft, we got Apple, we got
That's right.
Amazon. So,
I mean,
I need to get inside my garage, start knocking
You're
shit out.
doing shit out of the room you're in right now. It's a pretty cool room to be in. Bo, a couple of things that I just notes here. So I'm still hung up on this 1.6 million employees thing. So I just looked this up. I just got to give some perspective on this. So if all of the Amazon employees got together and they had to come to work for a day, the city of Philadelphia, where I'm from, would not be big enough to house all of the Amazon employees. Philadelphia's population is 1.59 million. You'd have to go to Phoenix, Arizona to comfortably fit what you have today, but there's no room for growth, right? Houston is where you'd want to be if you wanted to house I mean, that's insane to me when you think it would take a city, a major US city, not just any city. We're not talking Cincinnati here. A major U.S. city to house all of those employees. It's amazing to me. I have to add this question in. And there might not be an answer to it. I have been told that Amazon interviews are quirky and they ask interesting questions in those interviews. It's not the typical run-of-the-mill interview. What's your experience? What's your background? Did you have any experience with that when you interviewed for the group? Did they ask different questions? Because I think that that's something actually really important for employers to learn, because we ask the wrong questions in interviews a lot of times.
No, yeah. I mean, the interview process is intense, and we invest heavily in that as well. We have people that are called bar raisers that are part of the interview loop that kind of are the ones that make the final call on whether you pass your interview. And it's not like they don't ask trick questions. They're like, how many grains of sand on the beach of California, right? It's not that. It's really it's their behavioral type questions, right? Questions like, what was your biggest failure? You're right. And again, I don't care what the failure was.
Right.
I want to know what you learned from that failure and what you did as a result of that failure. Right. So it's results-based questions that are driving behaviors. Right. So that, again, it's really what I talk about the interview process is it's really about storytelling, and it's having a story to tell of this experience happened. This is what I learned from it, and this is how I do things now. Right. And I think the challenge for veterans is often they just want to answer the question, like 7.
Right.
It's like the answer is never 7, right? It's how'd you get to 7? What was the thought process behind that? That's what we want to know, is the thought process and the growth. Again, and all the questions are going to drive you to think and understand and give like we're going to dig in on the why behind the how you got there in the interview process by like there being a right answer. There's no right answer, but you have to be. And I tell, look, hey, when you come to Amazon, you need to have 15 stories in life that were impactful about how you were a leader or how you improved your education, or where you had made mistakes, or where you work with data, and have these kind of stories, because you don't know what question you're going to get, but be able to kind of adapt them to it. So it's practicing storytelling is really the key to success.
This is a phenomenal answer for 2 reasons. One, from the employer side, I always say this when people apply to my employees. I say, I have no interest in how hard of a worker you are, because everyone who applies is a hard worker, and your references are, I'm not negating them, but I mean, these are people that are going to give you a good review, right? So, and we rely on those two. Oh, he or she said she's a hard worker, and I called the references and they said they're a hard worker. Everyone's you're never going to have someone call like, oh, don't hire that asshole. That's not going to happen. All right. But it's like you said, how do you work within a team? How are you with other people? Are you the ability to learn? These are the things I look for. This is the point I wanted to make. If you served, and if you're listening to this show, you did. You have these answers. You have the experience. You have to know how to communicate it. That might not be as easy, but if you served in the military, you are more equipped to answer these questions than I think any civilian out there, just based on your experience. This is whether you went in combat or not. You served on the greatest team on the planet. Okay. And if you're going to Amazon, it's another of the greatest teams in the planet. You got to go to Houston to fit them all in one city. All right. So you have the experience. I can see how some people might need help with the storytelling. All right. I can see how some things you might not even want to talk about. Right. But I just think that's an incredibly important point when You're looking at interviews from both directions, right? Howie, did you want to add anything?
But Lee, I have to jump in though, because I do think that veterans could have a problem with this, right?
Sure.
And I'll tell you why. And let's just take the question that Beau gave us, which I think is a fascinating question, is, what's your greatest weakness, right?
Right.
I think veterans all have a hard time being honest and transparent and candid with that, right? And I'm going to use myself as an example. A different situation, but same thought process, right? So I've struggled, as you know, with depression a good part of my adult life, and it included my time in uniform, right? And I would not, and you've heard me say this multiple times before, certainly when I was in uniform, I would never seek help. I would never be willing to admit that I needed help. I would never ask for help. Because I didn't want to, number one, I didn't want to show any sign of weakness, certainly when I was in a leadership position. And I don't care what your position was. I considered myself a leader in any position I was in, whether I was informal or formal as a leader, right? The second thing is I had a top secret, specially compartmented information clearance, which gave me access to all the great jobs that I had in my entire career. And I was going to put that at risk. The only reason I bring that up is, so if I were sitting in an interview with that mindset, right, that I've grown to develop over 27 plus years in the military, and someone says, what's my biggest failure or weakness, I'm going to be real guarded about what I say. And in reality, what I think Beau and Amazon want you to do is say, hey, I screwed this up, and be very transparent, honest, and candid about it. But here's what I learned. Here's what I did. Here's how I applied the lessons learned. And here's how I prevented it from happening again, right? And which would be a great, and tell the story about how you learned that and applied the lesson learned. I'm just not, but I'm comfortable doing that now, but I'm 65 years old, right? And I'm a lot different person than I was when I got out of the military. And I'm a lot more honest with myself now than I was when I got out of the military. So I think it's phenomenal. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not being critical. I love that kind of a question. I love what you're truly looking for. Is just, I don't know that a young man or young woman or a seasoned, NCO or officer will be able to handle that in the way Amazon's looking for them to answer it,
What I would say, Howie, is, we have a military interview or recruiting team, right? That is made up of veterans and military spouses. And we have resources out there, interview prep guides that will, give you some pointers on that. So
that's great.
Again, if you're showing up to an interview cold, shame on you, right? You can't. Yeah. And I have people that have done that, and I've had people, Howie, to be 100%. I had a veteran, transitioning veteran, tell me. I asked him that question. Tell me about your biggest failure. And he said, I've never failed, and he didn't know it. He just failed that interview. I mean, I can't. Kidding. You have to be able to deal with failure to be successful at Amazon, right? I can't hire someone that doesn't know how to fail or have the mechanism built in to do that. So, but if you do your homework ahead of time, you should know the kinds of things that Amazon is going to ask you. And we actually partner with a company actually called Candorful, and they do some specific veteran interview prep, and they go through behavioral questions, and they will help you to kind of understand what these conversations are in. And again, if I'm an interviewer, I'm typically going to try to pull that out of you, and I'm not going to let you fail because you don't have you have the experience, but you just need to understand how to couch it in the right way, right? So I will work with you on the interview to do that, but hopefully you've done that ahead of time, and you have those stories you can tell that it can adapt to the questions that are being asked, and that shows your investment in the interview process, right? That's important to me, that you're showing up prepared. I don't want you to take the test cold. I want you to prepare, to understand our culture. Like another thing, one of the last things I'll ask is, do you have any questions for me? And if people don't have a question for me about Amazon, well, then that's not, you may have failed the interview by not asking me a question, right? I want you, we have this idea of learn and be curious. It's an Amazon trait, and that's, if you don't have a question, ask me about drones, ask me about, anything. There's something that's space. I mean, I may not know the answer. I just want to know you're thinking and have done your homework about Amazon and have some type of passion for the place. And if you're just doing it to check a box of an interview, well, I don't want you on my team anyway. You know,
I'll
This
tell
is
you,
fascinating to me
Yeah.
that, so I listen, I applaud Amazon in ways I couldn't even understand with what you just described to me. So I think that's absolutely phenomenal. So I agree with you then, because I didn't know, I didn't understand that. I didn't know that, how you're offering the opportunity to be as prepared as you could be. So shame on anybody who goes into that interview and isn't totally candid, transparent, honest. Shame on you. If you want to work at Amazon, then shame on you.
Beau, I think Howie passed the exam. I think he's going to. Howie, look, just to I think there is a middle point here, because the other side of this is maybe you're not trying to work at Amazon, right? Maybe psychologically you're not ready for that, and you just kind of need a standard 9 to 5. And there's jobs out there too for that. And I think the middle point is that understanding that you might not psychologically be ready to divulge into these things yet, but it's a process you might want to start taking to get yourself to that point. I think that's the middle ground, because you're right, man. People coming out with PTS, they're not going to be in a day one position to do that. And Beau, I'm sure you have counselors for that as well. But yeah, it's funny because when I look at that interview process and the questions that are asked, especially the question, do you have any questions for me? I encourage everyone interviewing for a job, not just transitioning military, to ask about the team culture, to ask about the interviewer's experience. Remember, interviews are a two-way process. And if you enter an interview with that mentality, you actually have a much higher chance of succeeding. If you do it the right way, you don't want to be cocky about it and be like, yo, so what's up with Amazon not going to New York and, all the place. That's not what I mean. But you should always be asking about team culture. You should always be asking about the people and are you fulfilled at this job? Throw that back in an interview and see what they say, because you don't want to end up at a place that's going to be tough for you too. But any final thoughts on the interview thing? Again, I didn't mean to dive into it that much. I'm so curious because of so many.
I think it's awesome that this has all come out. This is absolutely.
Yeah, it's a unique and fascinating process. And again, I would tell you, to your point, Lee, I mean, culture is everything. Every company has a different culture. USAA is different than JP Morgan, is different than Amazon. It's okay. I don't want you to come to a place. Look, if you come to a place and you're a bad cultural fit, you're going to leave, right? Again, to the point of retention,
or be asked to leave.
You need to don't come here just because it's a job, right? And people, that's the problem with the veterans get nervous and they don't have a job and they take the first thing available, right? And I understand that. I mean, we see it and we've kind of been there, so I understand that mindset. But you need to understand the culture. Are you going to be comfortable in a culture where people encourage you to wear silly jackets and dogs are running around? You have this, maybe you need something that's more structured. You might need that. That's okay, right? There's a job for everybody. Amazon's not for everybody. It is for 1.6 million, but there's a lot more out there.
It is for the city of Houston.
That's right. Yeah. There's a lot more people out there that maybe it's not a fit for, and that's okay. And I'm happy to help you get to that job. And maybe you learn through our interview process that, I'd rather you learn in the interview process than get there and then leave, right? So that's part of that, is understanding that culture is I see a million resumes every day. I mean, a lot of resumes every day, and all of them, or most of them, they qualify for the job. But I want to know if you're going to be a cultural fit, right? The operational fit is easy to tell. You did that. You've done these things. You're going to be fine. I can teach you the Amazon way of doing that. You'll figure that out. But you're going to be a cultural fit. That's really, and there's an art to that. It's not a science always, but that is really, to me, what it's all about. And how can we kind of suss that out in the interview process?
I'll tell you this too. Look, again, the parallels, right? In sports, right? Talent is everything at the highest levels. You have to have talent to be there. And look, there are few people that are so talented that you have to bring them in. And most of the times a team will try and teach that person. But the truth is this, the separator, you get to the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLB level, it's not talent. It's the person. They interview you on what type of person you are, because that's the differentiator of a million athletes or many athletes, right? So I'm just making parallels here that this is a societal thing. It's not just limited to one company or anything, right? You want to separate yourself. What kind of person are you? All right, it's time for Howie's favorite part of the show. So, Beau, every guest on our show gets a book title. So if you're going to write a book, I suggest a title. I take no royalties. I don't even take any credit. I just hand it to you. Originally it was going to be, I survived an hour with Howie and Lee, but I think that's beneath you. Actually, you're working for Amazon, so I had to throw a little salesmanship into this for you. Your book title is Transitioning from A to Z. Right? That's got to be what it is, right? It just makes a lot of sense. You don't get sued by Amazon because I didn't go in and trademark with that. You can say from A to Z. They don't own that. If you say everything from A to Z, that's a transitioning or acclimating from A to Z. If you want to put a little bit more of a overall, but that is definitely your book title. Forward by Jeff Bezos, by the way. That's.
I like it. I like it. We like to say, in the Amazon logo, it's A to Z.
Yeah.
We have a military logo. It's just the word military with a smile under it, and the smile goes from M to A in the word military. It's transitioning from military to Amazon.
That's
awesome. Very cool.
How about that?
Cool. I just see the things you don't see, right? The things you don't see.
Yeah.
Put that on the news and see people
transitioning from military to Amazon.
That's
right.
brilliant.
Very cool.
So, Beau, last question. Pivotal Moments Media, our company, we're always seeking to strengthen mental fitness everywhere, right? And as we've discussed in this episode, we all struggle with mental fitness from varying degrees. If you're willing to share, have you had any struggles with mental fitness? Have you seen others that struggle? I mean, obviously in the interview process and finding people, that's probably part of it. But could you share more about what you've experienced or others have experienced, and how do you manage those challenges? How do you strengthen your mental fitness on a daily basis?
No, that's a great question. And there's two things for me. One is running. I run most every morning still. And that's my time to just kind of clear the decks and have just kind of I think about the day past and I think about the day to come and try to manage what that is. And I've learned that. So I went to a Jesuit high school. I'm still I'm Catholic and I do a Jesuit retreat every year, a silent retreat. And it talks about that every day. It's called the Examen, and you examine your day. And that is how I honestly deal with it. You take the day before and you find the goods and the bads, and you think about the day ahead. And without that, when I don't do it, I know that I may not have a good day, and that to me is how I manage that, because there's going to be bad days out there. Amazon is hard. It is stressful. I mean, life is hard. I have 5 kids. There's always something, right? There's always, work is hard. Life is hard. But you try to find the blessings and find the positives, and make little victories every day, and figure out how how you can utilize the gifts you've been given. I try to say every day, what physical, mental, emotional, spiritual gifts can I use to make a difference today? And I talk through that every day when I run, and then hopefully I employ it. But it's not easy. I mean, it takes work. I mean, it is a daily kind of thing, and you can get out of it and you can feel yourself getting out of whack when I'm like, all right, let's reset. I go home from Mardi Gras every year for about a week. I come back and I'm out of whack. I gotta get myself back into this. That's how I do it. That's how I deal with it. But it's not easy. Again, it just takes everyday focus, and that's my way of dealing with it.
Yeah, being present, and then what I love, Beau, is the same things. You clearly have a purpose. You clearly have a community. You clearly know your identity and how that splits in your life. Those are keys. And look, you're doing all this with a really big smile on your face. I mean, that you can tell that you enjoy this, right? The good and the bad. That to me, that's successful, right? And again, like you said, I know you've been transitioned for a while, but that's a successful transition. It doesn't happen overnight. Right. So that's fantastic, man. And again, I really learned a lot from listening to you speak today. And I got to tell you, as a business owner, as a person, it's inspiring to hear that Amazon is doing things like that. Right. And I really wish we could break the stigma surrounding things like this so that could be broadcast a bit more. Again, I know Amazon's not going to probably do that, but I'm saying I wish we could see things like this more as civilians and as people in the workforce, because big companies do great things. All right. Some of them also do bad things, but that doesn't mean that's all there is. Right. There's lots. So I really commend you and the work that Amazon's doing for our transitioning military members.
Thanks, Lee. Appreciate it. And Howie, thanks. Great being here today. Really, I mean, I love what we do. Again, I think Amazon is. One thing we're not good at is PR. We don't tell our own story about what we're doing in the military space very well. I think we are at at the PR level, we're very risk averse. We're not risk averse internally, we're risk averse externally of like what
Right.
people are going to say. So we, as a result, we kind of don't say much.
Well,
which is
you tell
unfortunate.
Jeff about life after the military. You let him
I'll do my
know.
best. I'm going to send him this podcast, and he's going to see this. Like, oh, I
What's his email? I'm ready to write that.
Jeff
at
P
Amazon.
at Amazon.com.
Right. He does put that up. Right. No, but Joe can say you're great. Howie, I'll let you have the final word before.
No, I just thank you so much, Beau. I mean, I knew when I met you a few months back when we first talked, I felt the same energy from you that Lee and I feel from you today. And I gleaned a few things about Amazon from that discussion, but this has taken it to a whole nother level. I have such a deep and broad respect for this company right now that I'm not sure I had before, because I just love the culture that you guys have created here and continue to build and as a standard and as an expectation. And I will tell you, if there's a business owner out there of any size that's listening to this, if you're not taking some notes, if you're not motivated, inspired by what Beau's describing, and more importantly, if it appeals to you, if you're not figuring out how to get in contact with him, because look, he's already told you, I'll share everything I got with you, right? And that's the whole point of what we're doing with this podcast, is to share lessons learned and specific to companies and corporations that are actively hiring, recruiting, and integrating veterans into their workforce. I'm not sure now. Dominion Energy, I know, is doing a phenomenal job. So I'll throw Dominion Energy up there as well. But I haven't come across too many that are even coming close to what you guys are doing. This is absolutely phenomenal to me.
No, I appreciate that. And again, love what I do. As you can tell, it does come out, and I mean that. If any company reaches out to me, if any individual reaches out to me on LinkedIn, I'm happy to give my time. Right, that's what I'm here for. Is I've made that transition. I want to help individuals be successful. I want to help other companies be successful, because it does take a village to be. I can't hire them all. I can hire a lot of them, but I can't hire them all. Right,
1.6 million of them.
That's right. That's right. So I'm happy to be a leader in that space, a thought leader in the spaces, and if anybody is interested in reaching out to me, I'm always happy to help them out. So thanks, and appreciate the opportunity to be here today. And good stuff.
Thank you. Thank you
Howie,
so
to
much,
your point. To what point, one business owner did take notes today and learn and was inspired today. So you got that. So, Beau, thanks so much. You've been listening to Life After the Military, which is powered by Pivotal Moments Media. Please, if you haven't already, subscribe to us, rate us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening. That really does help us out a lot. And obviously share this episode and share this show with anybody you think that needs it. And again, you can learn more about Pivotal Moments Media at pivotalmomentsmedia.com. We have multiple channels dealing with adversity in sports, how inspirational women inspire other women, building mental fitness in the workplace, how artists, musical artists, any type of artist can overcome adversity and strengthen their mental fitness. And obviously we have a mental fitness education center. We are really dedicated to this mission that we all share, of breaking that stigma surrounding mental health and mental fitness. So for Colonel Beau Higgins and Howie Cohen, I'm Lee Elias. Thanks so much for listening to Life After the Military, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day, everybody.